CATF is working to accelerate the development and deployment of zero-carbon fuels like hydrogen and ammonia. Through rigorous analysis, public policy design, public education, and advocacy, we're making sure that the global markets, policy, and political conditions are ripe for a full transition from high-emitting to zero-carbon fuels.
Today, despite critical efforts to electrify our energy system, 65% of the final energy we use is still provided by oil, gas, and coal. These fuels pump high amounts of carbon dioxide and other pollutants into the atmosphere when combusted, harming public health and pushing the planet toward irreversible climate tipping points. Electrification, combined with a shift to zero-carbon electricity production, is a key component of a successful strategy to mitigate emissions. But not all fuel end uses can be electrified. Fuels used for marine shipping, heavy-duty trucking, aviation, industrial heating, and iron making are all particularly difficult to electrify, and experts predict that fuels will continue to play a role long into the future. That's where zero-carbon fuels come in. Zero-carbon fuels, namely hydrogen and ammonia, are fuels that don't emit any carbon dioxide when used, making them prime candidates to decarbonize difficult-to-electrify sectors and help clean up electricity production by providing a firm low-carbon energy resource. In fact, the International Energy Agency projects that we will need as much as 500 times more hydrogen than we currently produce. In order to meet that demand in time, we must rapidly build a global economy for zero-carbon fuels, ensuring climate-beneficial production pathways that free our global economy from fuel emissions.
Our global team works every day to design, support, and implement policies that accelerate the deployment of hydrogen and ammonia. From Appalachia to Amsterdam, we spark international cooperation to ensure that the policy landscape allows us to develop trade and deploy these critical climate solutions.
Given the significant demand increase projected for zero-carbon fuels, it's critical that we don't block any potential pathway for low-emissions hydrogen production, adopting instead a technology-inclusive approach.
CATF is working to pursue all promising pathways for hydrogen production, including methane reforming with carbon capture, and water electrolysis using various forms of clean electricity, including nuclear and renewables such as solar, wind, and superhot or geothermal. Each of these pathways has its unique advantages and can play a critical role in meeting the hydrogen demand in accordance with best practices for emissions reductions.
Hydrogen and ammonia do not emit carbon dioxide when combusted, but how they are produced matters. Hydrogen climate benefits should be based on carbon emissions accounting across the entire value chain, rather than color labels.
At CATF, we are advocating for the implementation of international hydrogen certification schemes that take into account the entire life cycle emissions across the value chain. We need clarity about hydrogen certification standards to move projects forward and reduce investment risks, making sure that hydrogen is indeed low carbon.
A key challenge for zero-carbon fuels are costs of production, infrastructure development, and markets. Right now, zero-carbon fuel prices are too high to compete with high-emitting fuels.
We need to understand the mechanisms that drive consumers to pay a premium for decarbonized fuels, materials, and goods. For example, hydrogen fuel cell heavy trucks have been effectively deployed where there are strong climate policies. These early demonstrations have shown that zero-carbon fuel clean vehicle technology is ready to replace diesel, but only if a sensible business case can be made.
In Europe, strong government support is needed to implement policy instruments such as carbon contracts for difference, but also tax incentives to foster investments in low-carbon technologies. The Netherlands and Germany are countries that have taken steps to enact policies for these technologies, but much more is needed than that.
At CATF, we're working around the world to decarbonize the global economy and collaborating closely with key stakeholders to develop national and global hydrogen economies. This requires strong demand signals for zero-carbon fuels, coupled with policy support and public and private financing. There is an urgent need for internationally aligned hydrogen standards and the implementation of robust and technology-inclusive certification systems that can fuel market confidence and enable a scalable hydrogen trade that supports the transformation of the energy system and global economy.